David Lynch is a filmmaker with a penchant for the darker side of life, graphically demonstrated in his films Eraserhead and The Elephant Man. His latest film, Blue Velvet, is no exception. Lynch uses a small, sunny, all-American town as the backdrop of a story of Jeffrey, Kyle MacLachlan, a naive young boy who becomes increasingly obsessed and involved with the evil and dangerous characters played by Isabel Rossellini and Dennis Hopper. So we've been exploring the American filmmaker's obsession with small towns, the light and dark side of them, in films as different as Frank Capra's classic It's a Wonderful Life, Joe Dante's Gremlins, and David Lynch's Blue Velvet. She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light.
Blue Velvet was the beginning of the whole series of ideas that came for the film, and it brought with it some sort of mood about small neighborhoods, small town neighborhoods. One of my fondest memories is being real little, looking up at a picket fence like this one you've got here, and which was exactly the opening of the film. It's white picket fence, blue skies, and red roses. It's fantastic, beautiful feeling that comes with that.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light.
The images that start the film are the classic images for me of small-town Americana. The feelings that I had, like when I was small, like everything was kind of, peaceful, and I just was like vibrating in happiness, and everything was right with the world. It was a very beautiful place.
Lost, 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 never is the prize,
I grew up in a lot of different places. I was born in Missoula, Montana, but I didn't live there very long, but it's probably a lot like Lumberton because it's got a lot of trees around it. And Blue Velvet is a film that's about a sort of a naive, innocent quality meeting an 80s kind of quality, and the small town that we shot in worked along with that.
The great American town is one you see on the horizon because it should be very flat there. There shouldn't be too many mountains or hills. It should be flat, and you see it coming a long way away. And ideally, you'd get in there about 5, 6, and it's getting to be magic hour, dusk. And they're closing up the shops, and the few street lights are coming on. And the kids are still on the street playing, but you know they're going to be safely away very soon. And from about 8 p.m., the streets are going to be empty, basically. Not just safe, empty. And in daylight, you'll see enchantment. You'll see every front yard is beautifully kept, and you'll see the school's got a white picket fence around it, and there's a church, and the cops out making sure that the traffic, what traffic there is well behaved and everything. And you won't want to leave, but you have to leave, and you'll buy a postcard as you go. And I think that the postcard may have turned into the movie for some film directors, you know. I'm quite certain that there were literally film directors who came to this country, like Frank Capra, say, who really came from Sicily, and at some stage in his life drove across the country to get to Hollywood. And he went through 25 towns a day like that. He's probably never lived in a town like that in his life and wouldn't. But many of his films use it because he's felt that's where the people are. the fate of the community is really what the film is about, and the perfect good American, George Bailey, who will never leave the town. He has opportunities early in his life to leave, but he stays in the town. And most Americans who come from small towns, of course, say what anyone would say is that they're wonderfully pleased to get out of the small town. But if they're filmmakers or if they're storytellers, I think they then try to recreate a legend that back in their small town, there is someone who will never leave, who is actually a version of themselves.
Hey, you look good. That's some dress you got on there.
What? This old thing? Well, I only wear it when I don't care how I look.
It's a Wonderful Life is one of those films every American knows. It's the idea that there remains a perfect, archetypal, modest-sized American town where there is no crime, really, where the schools are good, where the water is clean, where you can bring up your children and they will marry your friends' children, and it will go on forever. It isn't true. That's why it's so appealing as a legend.
Suburbia can be shorthand. You write a little homespun story and you plop it down in somebody's backyard, and everybody immediately recognizes where they are. They recognize it from 100 other pictures. They recognize it from their real life. I mean, in America, I think people in big cities even remember that once they lived somewhere else, or the city that they're in now didn't used to be a city. It's really it's a kind of a nostalgia.
What is it?
No.
It's your new pet. Come on, Barney, be a good dog.
I grew up in Parsippany, New Jersey. It was, little row houses and a little shopping center with a theater and a neighborhood where everybody knew everybody's name. And it's sort of, the kind of town that Invasion of the Body Snatchers happens in.
Just like any Saturday morning. Len Perlman, Bill Bittner, Jim Clark and his wife Shirley and their kids. People I've known all my life.
It's a little easier to do sort of a sweet story about people, simple people, and small things than in a small town than it is to do it in a big city, because it's people tend to be more sophisticated in a big city.
Yesterday it all seemed normal. Today everything seemed the same, but it wasn't. It was a nightmare. It really became frightening. It was like the whole city had changed overnight.
They've been surrounded by Rama for 40 days, and they've run out of...
There's a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and it's a perfectly creditable film, but it doesn't work for a major reason, which is that the original picture is predicated on people living in a small town knowing each other well enough to see that they're acting differently. And in the new picture, it's set in San Francisco, where everybody acts differently all the time. And as a result, the whole concept sort of goes out the window.
Oh, my God! Oh, my God! Lock the door! Lock the door!
They're coming! They're coming! Help! Help! They're coming! Can't you see? They're after you! They're after all of us! Our wives, our children, everyone! They're here already! You're next! You're next!
I think people make movies about things they know, and a lot of filmmakers grew up in small towns. Steven Spielberg did in his pick. He's the king of the small town movies. Frank Capra, and W.C. Fields used to make pictures set in small towns, in which he would viciously caricature people in the towns. And we based Gremlins a little bit more on a Frank Capra model. I can't imagine what Frank Capra must have thought of it, but it was intentionally modeled on It's a Wonderful Life. If the set had still been standing, we would have shot it on the set from It's a Wonderful Life.
Yay! Hello, Bedford Falls! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, George! Merry Christmas, movie house! Merry Christmas, Emporium!
Mom, something wrong?
No. No, it's a sad movie.
it's a remarkable picture because of its the maturity with which it deals with certain subjects. I think probably it's the kind of picture that wouldn't have been made before the war. I think it really reflects a post-war mentality, but it's a very dark picture, and it's probably the darkest picture that Capra ever made.
It was made in the late 40s, the time of film noir, and it has what you would have to call a nighttime sequence, the sequence where George is shown what would happen to Bedford Falls if he killed himself. And the world you see there is like the world of a Fritz Lang movie. It's dark, it's full of whores and racketeers, it's full of family failure, it's full of shadow. It may not be raining in it, but you feel it's raining in it. It's a depressing world, and it's exactly that sort of very melancholy, dark landscape that you see in film noir.
Yeah.
I know everything shot in this town. I know fire and all.
Wonderful.
Checked all the pieces. Everything shot in this town.
In A Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart has certain experiences and realizes something about his life in the small town, and so in that way, Jeffrey Beaumont in Blue Velvet has certain experiences and realizes something about his town, but I think, and more importantly, learns a lot about himself. The small cities in America sort of have, throughout recent time anyway, represented something that's very good and sort of a perfect world, and but in reality it's not that way.
Get this, in the distance there was a murder. This drug dealer was shot to death and the woman had her legs broken.
Jeffrey.
And these two guys told me that the police would find a huge amount of drugs in the dead dealer's place.
I can't believe what you're finding out. Are you gonna continue with this?
Yeah.
Until when? I mean, what are you gonna do with this stuff?
Well, I don't know.
You're not going back to her apartment?
Yeah.
Jeffrey, why?
I'm seeing something that was always hidden.
I like the idea that there's a surface of something that hides, way, way, way more underneath. It's not all dark and evil, but it's at least unknown. And I like going down in that darkness and seeing what's there.
Thank you, Jimmy. See you tomorrow.
In some ways about voyeurism, and I think people are fascinated by that, about being able to see into a world that they couldn't go visit except through the film. And you have to face certain things inside yourself when you see a film like this, and some people don't like to face it or admit to certain things that are swimming about inside. These days, a lot of things are kind of bobbing up to the surface and being looked at that have been hiding. So it's a film to do about things that are hidden in the small town and hidden inside of people, just the same way.
I'll send you straight to hell, fucker!
Walk with you. In dreams.
are mine.
He certainly knows what the myth leaves out. He certainly knows what lies it tells indirectly. And he's as interested in those as he is in the myth. But I think he still wants the myth. I think David Lynch loves the ideal. And I think he's as much hooked on it as anyone, and I think he still hopes it could exist. I think he would love it to exist. It's not an attack on the ideal, no. I think he'd still like to have, for himself maybe, that wonderful, perfect life.
In the dream, there was our world, and the world was dark because there weren't any robins, and the robins represented love. And for the longest time, there was just this darkness, and all of a sudden, thousands of robins were set free, and they flew down and brought this blinding light of love. And it seemed like that love would be the only thing that would make any difference.
Solemnly swear. I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Morning, Jim.
America's a country where I think people can see the ideal trashed a great deal and still believe in it. I think he manages to go on television and stroll around the White House and behave just like the pharmacist, say, or the policeman in a town like Bedford Falls. He talks that way, he thinks that way, he believes in those things, and it seems that no one's let him in on the darkness. He doesn't believe in the darkness still. And I think that's a large part of his appeal. I think he reminds people that it is possible to believe totally in these things.
I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
And Blue Velvet opens in London on the 10th of April.